On a quiet night in ancient Japan, a young, handsome samurai, wearied from his travels, wandered into a remote town seeking shelter. Bathed in the dim moonlight, he stumbled upon an old, seemingly deserted house. As he approached, a shadow stirred in the upstairs window. The shape looked unnatural, but he ignored it, thinking it was just his exhaustion playing tricks on him. The town, remote and eerie, was dotted with abandoned homes, so he decided to walk away, looking for rest elsewhere. Just as he turned to leave, a beautiful woman appeared at the door, cradling a child in her arms. Her eyes met his, flickering with a strange recognition, before she gazed down at the child and whispered just loud enough for him to hear.
"He has returned. The father of my child has returned."
The woman began to advance toward the samurai, her steps unnervingly fluid and quick, reminiscent of an insect's skittering gait. The samurai's hand instinctively found its way to his sword's hilt, a reflex honed by years of training. As she neared, he saw not human feet, but several spiky appendages creeping forward. Adrenaline surged, his sword unsheathed in a swift motion, slashing at the creature. She let out a piercing scream, revealing venomous fangs, and retreated into the house, leaving behind a trail of blood. The next day, the samurai returned to the house with armed locals. In the attic, they discovered the grotesque body of the Jorogumo, a creature known for enchanting, trapping, and feeding on young men. From the rafters hung several bodies, each meticulously wrapped in spider silk, chilling evidence of the creature's lethal allure. The samurai was right to trust his instincts, for this was no ordinary woman. What was this strange creature, and what did it want with the samurai? Welcome to the mysteries of mythology, the Jorogumo. The Jorogumo is a creature from ancient Japanese mythology. There are many spider-related creatures in the Japanese pantheon, with the Jorogumo being one of the most popular. The Jorogumo was depicted in different ways, sometimes as a beautiful woman who would transform into a giant spider. And in other stories, she was a therianthrope, a half-woman, half-spider creature. But all versions shared the feelings of danger and fear elicited by spiders and the enchanting beauty of young women. Its name Jorogumo comes from combining Joro, a term historically related to female attendants or even prostitutes, and Kumo, meaning spider. Most translations give the names entangling bride, binding bride, or spider whore, intentionally derogatory terms. The Jorogumo is a member of the vast and varied family of yokai, supernatural beings that have shaped much of Japan's traditional narratives. Yokai stories, including those of the Jorogumo, often served as more than just tales. They were explanations for the unexplainable, reflections of societal norms, and vehicles for imparting moral lessons. Where Japanese mythology differs from Western mythology is the importance of purity and impurity, as opposed to good and evil. This is reflected in the stories of yokai, where purity takes priority over what the Western world considers good or evil. Some argue that the Jorogumo is the test of the young men's purity. If they give in to their impure desires, then they will suffer the fate of the spider monster. Our spider woman first crept into literature during the Edo period in the 17th century, a time ripe with storytelling. But its roots likely extend back far beyond this time into the oral traditions, where stories were not just entertainment, but lessons and warnings passed down through generations. But the Jorogumo's talents don't end with shape-shifting. In some tales, she controls lesser spiders, weaves webs stronger than any mortal creation, and even possesses venom that slowly incapacitates her victims. Her many children are very protective of their mother and their nest. with the ability to spit fire and burn the homes of those suspicious of their mother's true identity. Additionally, some legends speak of the Jorogumo enchanting men by playing the biwa, a traditional Japanese instrument. This musical lure, often set in secluded shacks, would captivate and trance her victims, adding another layer to her deceptive and seductive nature. It's a haunting blend of beauty and horror, ensnaring the imagination as much as the creature ensnares her prey, such as in our next story. At the Jōren Falls of Izu, Shizuoka Prefecture, a man tired after a long walk rested near the waterfall basin. He awoke to find a giant web stuck to his leg. The web began to pull him into the basin, but he was able to remove the web from his leg to a nearby tree stump. The man had transferred the web just in time. As soon after he had freed himself, the log was pulled through the air as if it had no weight and dragged into the falls. He ran away, returning to his village and warning everyone of what had happened, ensuring no one from the village would visit the waterfall again. No one visited, until one day a woodcutter who was a stranger to the region was cutting wood near the falls when his axe slipped from his hands and flew into the falls basin. As he stepped into the basin to search for his axe, a beautiful young woman emerged from behind the waterfall, holding the woodcutter's axe. The woodcutter, seeing her unearthly beauty, immediately fell in love and would visit the fall every day. But each day he returned, he became sicker and sicker. An Osho, a priest of a nearby temple, noticed the woodcutter's condition and suspected that the woodcutter was being poisoned by the Jorogumo, mistress of the waterfall. On the woodcutter's next visit to the waterfall, the priest accompanied him. At the waterfall, the priest saw a spider thread reach toward the woodcutter and gave a thunderous yell, to which the thread disappeared. But the love or enchantment that the woodcutter felt persisted. Knowing that the only way to be with the lady in the lake was to ask permission from the mountain spirit or Tengu. He asked, but the Tengu refused the unnatural and impure union. Crazed by the refusal, the woodcutter ran back to the falls. As he ran towards the basin, webs flew from behind the falls towards him, wrapping around his body. With a final pull into the basin, the woodcutter was never seen again. Other versions of this story included the Jorogumo committing the woodcutter to an oath never to tell anyone what he saw. Then one drunken night, he shared what he found at the falls. That night he went to sleep and never awoke again. Or another version is that after sharing his secret, he was dragged outside by a thread and was found dead, floating in the Jōren Falls. These tales suggest that the Jorogumo holds power over those who swear oaths to her. This power was evident in the woodcutter's story, where his oath of secrecy, once broken, led to his tragic end. This, again, echoes the strong belief in the dangers of impurity. It's not known exactly when and how the association started, but the Jorogumo has for a long time been connected in oral stories with a real-world spider, the Golden Orb, and it's easy to see why the two might be connected. Firstly, the appearance of the Golden Orb Spider, or the Joro spider as it's known in Japan, is quite striking. With its large size, vibrant colors and strong webs, it isn't hard to see why it could be associated with the captivating and seductive Jorogumo. Then there's the habitat. Both the mythical Jorogumo and the real Golden Orb Spider are linked with forested and mountainous areas and deserted homes. And culturally, there's a fascinating aspect to consider. In many traditions, animals that live longer are often thought to possess magical powers. Given the Golden Orb Spider's relatively long lifespan, this could have fed into the folklore. The myth tells us that if a golden orb lives to the age of 400, then it gains its full power, transforming from a mere spider to a yokai, and moving from eating insects and birds to sustain life to something more filling, such as young men. This relationship between the orb spider is made evident in our next tale. One day, the wealthy heir of a samurai family, Magoroku, was enjoying a moment of peace on his porch. When he opened his eyes, he saw a woman, perhaps in her 50s, approach him. The woman told him that her daughter had fallen madly in love with Magoroku and implored him to return to her home to speak to her daughter, as she was afraid of what she might do. Magoroku followed the woman to meet this mysterious admirer. Inside a mansion, Magoroku found himself face to face with a beautiful young woman who pleads with him to consider her as a bride. Despite her pleas, Magoroku remained faithful to his wife, declining the offer. But the girl insisted, adding that Magoroku had almost killed her mother 2 days ago, and despite this, she still loved him. Bewildered by the meeting, Magoroku politely declined and left the mansion. But as he left the house, the entire scene dissolved, and Magoroku was sitting on the familiar porch of his home. His servants insist he'd been dreaming on the porch the whole time. But Magoroku's experience was far from a dream. He spotted a Golden Orb Spider scurrying away over the eaves of his home. The reality dawned on him. He had been ensnared by the Jorogumo's web of deceit, a spider's revenge. He remembered that 2 days ago he had spotted such a spider and almost killed it with his axe. This tale of Magoroku and the Jorogumo is a vivid example of how these stories intertwine the supernatural with everyday life, leaving listeners to wonder where reality ends and the world of yokai begins. This might be a good time to please the gods of mythology with a quick ritual. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and strike the bell for notifications. Whether the name of the creature came from the myths or its name created the myths, calling women Jorogumo and men Tsuchigumo, a similar creature known as an earth spider, was commonly used with foreigners and those who did not show allegiance to the Emperor of Japan. While the tales of the Jorogumo are deeply rooted in Japan's past, they continue to resonate and evolve in today's world. In modern times, the Jorogumo has leaped from ancient folklore into the realm of pop culture. You'll find her in various forms of media, from anime and manga to video games and movies. What are your thoughts on the Jorogumo? Do you see her as a mere mythical creature, or does she embody something deeper in our collective consciousness? Share your views in the comments. If you wish to reach the next level of mythological mastery, join me in the next video.